Welcome to the last episode in our new player starter series. We're finally going to cover all the endgame modes and things that you kind of been working towards. So if you've been diligent with your dailies and continuously doing them, after about 2-ish weeks, which is kind of where we're at on this account, you'll be getting to the point where you can start prepping for the final endgame modes, which will unlock at Commander level 55. But we'll cover everything that we haven't so far, and then we'll transition over to that. I'll switch accounts, and we'll talk about those. Thanks for the New Year's greeting, Nemesis. You're the best. I want to start off by kind of revisiting the campaign menu here. So if you have been doing your dailies diligently, like I said, we're about 2 weeks in with this account, and we're Commander level 40-ish. You will have gotten about past Chapter 8. This is the last chapter I highly recommend you actually rush, because this one gives bonus experience like we had discussed before. These other chapters with the little compass icons, these are events that ran, and they're just story-related events. They don't give you any extra commander experience. They just give you combat reports and collapse pieces. So you can do those at your own pace if you need a little extra collapse piece influx on your account, but you can get to them whenever. But what we do want to talk about is, and then this also applies for past events as well. This is just like filler story stuff that reminds you, what you missed or whatnot. But I do want to talk about supply missions. So something does start to change about this point in the game. So the goal of min-maxing, I use that in quotations, the progress of your account is to prep for endgame. So endgame, what I'm calling endgame, starts to me at level 55. That's where you unlock the big endgame modes, which we'll talk about later on. We'll go in a little more detail about them. But so from commander level 40-ish to 55, you kind of want to start prepping your account. You need to start farming all the stuff that you need to kind of get your units as strong as they can be going into endgame mode. So let's talk about this. This has changed slightly. So as you've been leveling up, you're going to unlock higher and higher tiers of these searches. So once we get to commander level 42, you're going to see you can speed all the way to the end here. So I, once again, highly recommend doing that. So at level 42, we're going to zoom through all of these, right? This one's 45, but this one's a little less important because the last tier that you need, these ones, they're not even used till you have to use you have to break through your unit's level at level 50. So you have a little bit of a delay. So you don't even need those just yet. But the rest of these modes you want to, like I said, unlock as much as possible. I don't know, this one might, 43 as well. But this is a good point in the game, especially once you get to level 43, to start farming for endgame gear, right? Once again, you can do these missions with a support unit, so don't feel like, you're going to be having a hard time. You can just easily farm these or clear these one time and then just auto battle the rest. I would say at level 43 plus is when you really start focusing on farming attachments. Specifically, you want to farm assault rifle and submachine gun attachments with maybe a little bit of rifle attachments if you got a really strong rifle unit, for example, like Macchiato or something. But assault rifle is going to be your bread and butter, and submachine guns, there's a decent amount of those as well. But assault rifles, right off the bat, I can think of 3 very powerful ones that are all on the standard banner: Tolol, Chongju, and Sharkri. All of those units are assault rifle. They all use the same attachments, which for everyone, like we discussed before, is going to be phase strike. So whenever you're farming one of these, just make sure you hit phase strike. Let me take a moment to elaborate why. There are other sets. I kind of glanced over this, or just skimmed the explanation on this last time, but let me give you a better explanation this time. So there are all these other different elemental boosts in addition to a couple other ones. Some of these are not very useful, right? Like double strategy is just bad. But there's an argument to be made for emergency repair and even ultimate pursuit on some specific units. The problem is it is way more important to get the right substats on the attachments, for example, attack percentage, crit rate, than it is to get these bonuses. A lot of these bonuses are not that important. For example, emergency repair here, there's a good argument to be made that this ability is really good for Centuries, but you're going to farm a set that is used on one character, gives you a very, very minor boost and is going to be kind of wasted on everybody else because you can't mix and match pieces, right? Like you can, but you're going to miss the bonus, right? Like the set bonus. So at that point, why even do it? Just use Phase Strike. The reason Phase Strike is kind of like the go-to set for everyone is it's just universal. Now, it sounds like it's hard to do this phase element debuff, but I will just tell you right now, there are so many. It's actually, you don't even think about it. It just happens naturally. If you play the game, almost every single unit in the game or their team that they're on has phase element debuffs. You almost never need to think about this. In fact, I never even think about it anymore. When I first started playing the game, I was always like, well, we got to make sure we have so-and-so unit on the team to make sure that, the phase, don't even worry about that. It just naturally happens. There's just so many phase debuffs floating around in the game right now. It's not worth thinking about. Which leads us to the next one. Why wouldn't you get specific element boosts? Because they're obviously more, right? And they're not, you don't even need the phase buff or debuff. But the reason these are not as good is because you can't transfer them between units, especially starting out. You really want to take advantage of the formation system. In the formation system, you can move gear around between characters, and I'll show that in a little bit. We'll talk about formations. You want to move gear around between characters to have all your best gear being used at the same time. This prevents you from doing that. For example, if I farm corrosion boost because my strongest damage dealer is Lind, that's not going to be useful if I have any other element, right? Even if you kind of take a generic character, like let's say we take Burn and we do Changju, it's like, okay, the only other unit that can even use that is Sharkery. It's like you're not going to be using those assault rifle attachments on any of the other assault rifles in the game. Same thing, it's similar issue with, different weapon categories. Submachine guns, like, well, okay, well, you can't farm for Vector and for Xiaomi at the same time. A lot of the support units in the game don't care about damage, like the damage set bonus, so they can just use the hand-me-down phase strike. But the main core damage dealers on your team really, really want it. Like Changju, Tolo, these powerhouse units that you're going to accumulate just by using the standard banner. Like, these characters really want a phase strike set, and they really want it maxed, like attack, and crit rate on every single piece. In addition to that, some characters have weird kits that are kind of left over from previous iterations of the game design process, right? Changju is one of them. When you first get Changju, she's going to be doing a mix of physical and fire damage. Eventually you'll unlock her key, and eventually you'll get her segment 3, and then she'll be doing pure fire damage all the time. But when you first start using her, she's going to be doing this weird, like, physical with half of the support attacks, but like her abilities are fire. It's when it comes to stuff like that, once again, this would only affect half her damage. Another good example of this, let me see if I can find it, corrosion boost on Nemesis. Nemesis's ult is corrosion. All of her other attacks are physical. So if you put a corrosion boost set on someone like Nemesis, she's only going to benefit from it half the time, or whatever percentage of attacks she's making. You got to be careful about that. Meanwhile, if you have phase strike, it just works on all damage, right? Whether it's physical damage or whether it's elemental damage, it's just all the damage gets increased. Okay, that was my 5-minute spiel about phase strike. Just always farm it. You're going to want to farm lots of assault rifle pieces. You're going to farm a lot of submachine gun pieces. Don't have to calibrate it too much. You want to calibrate it to try and get things above 100%-ish. And we'll worry about min-maxing more. But like I said, in preparation for level 50, you just want everyone to have gold level attachments with the right stats. And then we'll worry about talking about calibration a little bit later. So that's for supply missions. Now let's move over to combat simulations. This one. Let's talk about this real quick. You will need these to unlock a unit's neural helix. These are important. You're going to have to farm some of these, and you just farm them as needed. I wouldn't try and go crazy on these, but this is definitely something that you want to farm as needed. You probably, it takes enough of these that you probably won't be able to farm a whole team for them. So once again, prioritize damage dealers and big impact units before like lesser support units and like units that are just kind of being there temporarily. Prioritize, like I said, your long-term units with this. But you will want to farm some of these. As we discussed in the previous guide, you can combine lower tiers. Like, so for example, we could combine 3 of these into one of the max tier ones of the tier 6 ones. It's not a great exchange ratio. I wouldn't suggest doing it unless you're really desperate. You will need both of these. Tiers 5 and 6, you're probably going to have to farm pretty consistently. Tiers 1, 2, and 3, you'll be getting through the reconnaissance missions that bring back resources. You'll be getting them from events. You probably will have a steady supply. Probably won't have to go out of your way to farm those, but tiers 5 and 6, you'll definitely have to farm. So keep that in mind. Combat exercise. Let's talk about this real quick. You've probably been doing this because you unlocked this. I don't think I talked about this in the last guide. You've probably been doing this already. You've probably also have noticed that a lot of people just put one level 1 unit or like a very weak unit as their defense. The reason for this is there is no penalty. This is, in my opinion, just a waste of space. This whole game mode needs to get booted. It was a half-baked idea. Someone at a board meeting said, hey, we need to have PvP in our game. They've already removed the other PvP. You'll see this is kind of like the leftovers. They smushed it into this game mode. But do this every day because you need it for your dailies and because it's free collapse pieces, obviously. But just, you know, be a gentleman. Abide by the gentleman's agreement. Just put a really crappy unit there. And then everybody can just get this done faster and not waste anyone's time. Nobody cares about how big of a flex you have on your little defense units here. I'm gonna be real, guys. You know, go flex on your profile or something. You're just wasting everyone's time. You know, the number of times I have to click that refresh button here, you know, to get someone like you know, it's like just whatever. One unit, see, like nice, easy, just quick, easy kill. All right. Next, let's go back over here to boss fight. So boss fight, you have unlocked this, I believe, around level 35-ish or something like that. Or maybe it was tied to one of the story chapters. I don't remember. This is an endgame mode, but this is not an endgame mode. The reason it unlocks so soon is so you can start progressing up it. We didn't talk about it in the last guide because it's one of those things where as you level your account, you're just going to automatically complete this. For example, at level 60, you can auto battle this and get max points and then never think about it again. So the way this works is, if you haven't done it yet, you'll put together a team, right? And you can see I still haven't done any gambling, anything on this account because like I said, I was trying to show you that you can get very far without actually investing in anything if you want to like save your collapse pieces, just abusing the support function. But these are finally some modes that can't abuse the support function, which is why I saved them for this guide. You're going to want to use your strongest team to fight it at higher tiers. Every time you beat it once, right, like if you completely kill it or get the maximum amount, which I believe is excellent, you'll then unlock the higher tier, and you just keep going up until you hit, you know, max level. You'll need multiple teams at max level, but this is not super important. All you really care about from this store here is you can get Sabrina's neural archives once per month. These are okay. She's been completely power creeped at this point. Like, I'll be honest, like if you want her for collection purposes, that's fine. I wouldn't sweat over not getting her segments. Like this is a collection thing. You'll probably never use her in any like real endgame mode after this. Obviously the access permissions. And then other than that, you just want to do the weekly core and the universal chain key because these are kind of hard to get and these are relatively new. Everything else in here you just ignore. You don't even have to get them. So you really only need, how many do we need? We get 4 of these. You know, 1,200-ish every week or so, which at low tiers I don't think is possible. Yeah, you're only going to be getting like 300, but at higher tiers, it won't let me show you, but we'll switch accounts later and you'll see. At higher tiers, you can get 1,000 plus every week. It's not a big deal, but listen, just try and grab the core and the keys, and then whatever's left over, grab access permissions and some things. The other tab on here is, these are challenge boss fights. They give you special mission objectives. You can see we're still not even allowed to do these yet, but while these are considered endgame challenges, I don't really consider them that important because you have to use your own units for them again, but you don't, there's no time limit on these. Like, these are not going anywhere, so you don't have to feel rushed to get them done. As you get bored and you want to accumulate some free bonus materials, you can just kind of come in here and do these fights. They're not incredibly difficult for a fully built team. Some of them I can't show you, but some of them have multiple teams required. Once again, you got to like field more than one team. But you'll see a lot of these. For example, a lot of these, like, eliminate him in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. You can just put your best team on that phase and then like just concede or die on the first couple phases and get this. So, for example, the first run, you'd put your best team on phase 1, kill them, then quit out. Then you put the best team on phase 2, and then for the first part of the fight, you just die instantly and go to phase 2. Then you kill them and quit out, and then you just continue to repeat that, and you just use your best team to accomplish these objectives one at a time. You don't have to do them all in one run at the same time. But like I said, this is not going anywhere. These fights don't like time out or expire or refresh, so you don't have to stress too much about that. Okay. Peak value analysis. This also unlocked. This refreshes on a weekly basis for the normal modes. You don't really care about these. They just give you some collapse pieces, and they're very, very small amounts. And this refreshes once a week, so it's not too pressing, but you do want to just power through all these. There's some decent rewards that you can accumulate. Eventually, we'll get to Extreme Peak. We'll talk about that. And then that goes along with Expansion Drill. Same thing. You've unlocked this now at lower levels, but there's no way you're going to be killing this high-level boss at Commander level 40. So we'll talk about that when we switch accounts. I think we've covered most of the important stuff. Let me just... Yep, I think we're good to switch accounts, and then we'll talk about some of those other endgame modes. Alrighty, so we're on my main account now, and let's just quickly cover over the endgame modes so then we can follow up this discussion with what we want to be farming and prepping. I know we already talked about Phase Strike and everything, but let's visualize the goal and then figure out how we're going to get there. So, and real quick, just want to show you on a high level 9 out of 9, you're going to be getting 3,000 because this is per run. So you'll be getting 3,000 of these per week. As you can see, I'm kind of flooded with them. You'll be able to buy out this stuff really easy. I'm already maxed out on Sabrina segments as well. So this is, like I said, not a huge deal if you don't have them maxed out right away. But you don't want to just kind of, like I said, work your way up. And to be honest, this score is really just based around how high level your units are. I maxed this out a long time ago, and I really had nothing special. It was just like 4 units that were all max level with like good gear. So let's talk about the 3 endgame modes. Like I said, peak value, expansion drills, and then phase clash, and then kind of Gunsmoke Frontline. That's a different topic, as we discussed before. That's kind of just like a group thing. It's not really all you, but for peak value and assessment, expansion drills, boss fights, and phase clash and stuff, these are the only endgame modes that you're not allowed to borrow units, and you have to like kind of rely on your account all by yourself. So this is like really the hard power checks. So let's take a look here. So once again, I didn't even claim it for the week, but this is the rewards you get on a weekly basis if you have all the normal peak value analysis cleared. So once again, you're only missing out on 1 and a little bit more pulls worth of collapse pieces, and then you get some gear and stuff. Ooh, I got some decent ones. Look at that. Some goodies. You don't have to worry about this. Like I said, get to it when you get to it. But at level 55, you will unlock Extreme Peak. Now, Extreme Peak works the same way that expansion drills work. You get 3 maps. You have to do them all in order. You get to pick your modifiers, and it's just going to send you up against a bunch of enemies. So you can do the base version of these, but they really are meant to be done at like I said, 18 frenzy level. You can see the rewards for these modes are like really weak. They do that on purpose. I think it was kind of like this is supposed to be an optional game mode for people to kind of test characters, flex their account, etc., etc. You don't have to do this game mode at all, but if you're looking for something to do, this game mode can be kind of fun. They get creative with the enemy layouts sometimes. Previous ones have been like tower defense style ones. Others have been, the one I think we had previously was the floor is lava, like different segments of the map were like literally covered in lava, and so it was like encroaching and the map was getting smaller and smaller. They get creative, they're very fun, give them a try. But what you're going to do is you're going to take modifiers like this, get the frenzy level up to 18 or higher if you want to go above and beyond, and then you're going to do the map. The enemies don't change, it's the same enemies every time. I mean, it's like as far as selecting frenzy levels, they change on whenever this refreshes, but these modifiers just make the enemies and the current layout harder. So if you can, just do it basic with no frenzy level and kind of get a feel for it, and then you can turn these up. So you're gonna see a trend with all of these endgame modes. If you just alpha strike and kill the enemies, and by alpha strike, for those of you who are not familiar with that term, that means just hit really hard first and just kill everything. There's nothing left to attack you back. And that is a very, very strong strategy in this game, as with most other games. And in game modes like this, it's probably the easiest, most efficient way to clear these types of maps. You'll take these ones down here, for example, mobility, healing reduction, like none of this stuff matters if they're dead, right? So you want to avoid taking ones like this where it's like AoE damage that you do is reduced. You don't want to take that because that's, once again, you're just going to try and take all the ones that maybe make the fight a little more interesting, but you usually stay away from the ones that increase their HP and defense. But like I said, you could really go for, make them hit really hard, because what does it matter if they're dead? So you'll do that all 3 levels. You got to do them in order, but they just give you some rewards, but they are a fun game mode. Next one is Expansion Drill. So Expansion Drill is a challenge that refreshes every couple weeks. It alternates with peak value analysis, and when you get to floor 10, it's the same thing. You battle whatever weekly boss it is, and then you have, after you've beaten him one time in the normal version of him, then you can apply frenzy levels just like we did in the previous menu. Once again, I will tell you, these bosses tend to not have a ton of HP. They tend to be a little on the more fragile side. If you have a full account of just max level units with correct gear, you don't even have to have segments. You don't have to have meta teams. As long as you have an account of just strong units. For example, if you just use that bare bones Tololo, Chongju Sharkery, or Vector instead of Sharkery, and like Springfield team, you're gonna just wipe the floor with this every single time. You don't have to have a bunch of crazy units. You don't have to have crazy team synergies. You don't have to have the entire electric team or the entire frost team. You can just use whatever you got laying around, as long as they're maxed out as far as you can make them, as far as like stats. You'll do just fine. And once again, damage is king. A lot of the modifiers make the attacks and stuff, or the enemy attacks and abilities do stuff, but to be honest, you can kill most of these bosses in 1 to 2 rounds and just ignore mechanics. So once again, Alpha Strike is the way to go for these, and this is important. So when we talk about the gearing section and like what we want to aim for, you'll see that we also aim for a lot of offensive stats. So that's those, and then let's hop on over here to time limited events. The other big mode, you'll have unlocked normal breakthrough mode, which I don't know if we covered that in the previous one, but the tutorial explains how it works. You go around collecting the loot boxes, etc. But Phase Clash is the upgraded version of this. It's the same exact game mode, right? You're running around collecting the crates and everything, but the battlefield enemies get a elemental affinity. Now, what this does is, obviously it makes a huge buff for the people of that element, but also gives a huge debuff to people who are not of that element. So for example, if we created a team here, Lind would be taking half stats, so she'd be running around with 2000 HP, which is very dangerous, and then obviously her attack gets reduced, etc, etc. So you do really want to match the element type. This is a very long-term game mode, because the game goal of this is to match the team to the element, but this is just something that you naturally do over time with the account as you collect characters. You can level 4 stars, but to be honest, the strategy that works for almost all of these is, let me go back to this real quick. If you don't have the right element, for example, before Robella came out, we only had 3 like decent frost units. I mean, there's Lotta, but like, you know, that doesn't really count. The strategy that works is to take a double healer combo. So usually a healer that increases the overall max HP of the team. So for example, in this case, it would be Xiaomi. Using Xiaomi's shields essentially like makes your overall HP much higher. And then usually Andrus as the last slot here. So we sub in Andrus for the like extra slot. The reason is because even though her stats get halved, once again she's going to lose a lot of HP, she's splitting damage and she's tanky enough that it won't really matter. This allows the team of Springfield and Andrus, or Xiaomi and Andrus, to just out tank the bosses. They hit significantly harder than other game modes. You do actually have to do the boss mechanics of these, but so this is just a weird game mode because it really does reward you to have characters of that element. You're just gonna have to do your best. You can ignore the bosses and just collect all the other rewards. These tiered rewards here, like these like different levels of for example, like if we go here, you can also see the breakdown. The majority of the good stuff that you care about is on the very first floor. So if you just clear out the very first floor, and you can do that without getting in any fights. If you get in a fight with a normal group of enemies, you can just retreat out of it. Other than that, you don't even need to worry about it. But mostly, if you're just very careful about how you move in this game mode, you never actually have to take... The only fight that you have to take is the boss fight, right? Because obviously he's standing right on top of one of the crates, and you have to kill him to get it. That's the only fight you have to take. All the other fights are optional. You can like very quickly dissect the enemies like one at a time, you know, kill this guy over here, etc., and then get yourself to a comfortable spot where you can just loot the crates without having to do a combat. Other than that, I said these rotate. There's, you know, sometimes it'll be like whatever, corrosion and physical in addition. So this is a long-term game mode. You just, you know, you just got to do your best. Collect as many rewards as you can. Nothing in here is too like irreplaceable as far as like rewards. The targeting chips are very nice. Obviously, you get a few more of the growth datas, which are important to the like remolding pattern flowers. But none of these other rewards are so like crippling that you won't be able to recover from it. Okay, so we have talked about all the different endgame modes, and we've identified that the best way to do them all is to kill the enemy before they kill you. Your next question obviously is going to be, okay, Ernizzle, how do I make big number go up? How do I make my units stronger? There's a couple different things that you have influence over. Obviously, the most important one is your level of your characters and your level of your weapons. These are going to give you some huge raw base stats. Do it. Obviously, max your characters out. Prioritize damage dealers over supports and other stuff. But make sure those are as high as they can go. So once again, focus on farming combat reports for both weapons and for characters until you can get that maxed out. The next big stat boost you're going to get for all your characters is Neurohelix. So once again, these nodes on the way to the end have pretty significant amounts of stats, and these are considered base stats. So these do apply to things like percentage-based modifiers, such as attachments. So Neurohelix, character level. Then after that, you also have character affinity level. So you do that by giving dorm gifts. They also increase the amount of, let's see if we can throw it here. Hi, Lind. If you look at the levels for a character, once again, you're going to be getting raw stats for all of these. So make sure you do them, because once again, these add up. These are all considered base numbers that get multiplied by things like percentage increases, which are on the weapons. So after you've leveled the character, after you've leveled the weapon, and you've done Neural Helix, then you do Affinity. The other big stat boost is from the Firepower Core here. This remolding pattern, just leveling it up, gives you another huge boost in stats. These are very important. This stuff is less important. These are nice, you know. To be honest, you're at the mercy of what you have for blossoms. You're not really going to be able to min-max this too much, especially as you're, like, you know, getting your account to max level. But just leveling up this Firepower Core is going to give you a huge bunch of stats. And some of them, that if you can match the Megaforms, they will give you even more stats. I think there's one that's just, yeah, here, like this one's just attack is increased by 8%. This is juicy. If you can match all these, though. The other thing that you will naturally level up over time is, they've moved it on me, it's over here now, is the Dispatch Room. This is something that you've probably been doing as you've been gaining characters and affinity with them. You'll be leveling this up. The Dispatch Room is somewhat important because it converts and creates resources over time. Actually, to be honest, the most important thing for me is the overflow conversion and storage limit rate. This lets you essentially go more than 24 hours without, like, quote, losing intel. So it's a nice little buffer in case you whatever, miss a day or or whatever, you have like a weird, real busy day, you don't get to log in until midnight or something. That definitely has not happened to me, because anyway. But the other big thing that the Dispatch Room does is it does provide raw stats to all the different characters. You'll see here, these are all just free stats. This changes, so you'll start out with like pretty much nothing, and then as it levels up, you'll see these numbers get bigger and bigger. This just rewards you for doing the affinity levels with your characters, because this is just based off like how much total affinity you have. So another long-term thing. Eventually you'll max it out like I have here, and then you can't go anymore. I can't go higher anymore. But these are more raw-based stats that the characters will use, and it really does help overall for your account. And like I said, it's across every single character of that type. So when you get a node that says Sentinel units get this, well, that's all your Sentinel units. So you're like leveling up all your characters at the same time. So don't neglect doing that. These are not a small amount of stats that you will miss out on if you're just totally ignoring this system. Okay, so let's go back to the Refitting Room real quick. We've covered all the different ways to passively increase your stats. These are like flat gains that you don't really have any influence over. It's just like, they occur naturally as you level things up on your account. Finally, let's talk about the things you do have choice over. The keys. This key is this is the affinity key that you get when you hit level 5 for the affinity. You'll get a key. They get a bonus. To be honest, just slap their key in their own slot and don't think about it. You can min-max this a little bit. For example, some characters might want crit rate, and attack boost over the health. If you don't have Covenant rings on people, it doesn't really matter. Just pick whichever one you want. The 0.3%, let me pick a character that has a better example. So for example, the 0.3% boost you're getting by having their key does not necessarily outweigh putting a key like this one in, for example. I would be happy to lose 0.3% attack and crit damage for also 3% crit rate on some characters. So don't worry about this too much. The no-brainer one is just, use the key that's tailored for them, but you can swap them out if they have like a god-awful key. A lot of characters have health as their last stat, but sometimes you get like really, really goofy. It's usually the support characters too, yeah. Like, for example, Springfield's key is like attack, health, and defense is like, not great. Defense is a really bad stat. So maybe you'd want to switch this one out for whatever. Attack, crit, health, or something. The other keys that you can put on a character are common keys. I talk about those in their character guides that, We'll also talk about them in a second in the formation section, but a lot of the times it's just, pick the key with the biggest, stats that they need, attack and crit, or attack and health. Then finally, we have weapon attachments. This is the other thing that you're going to farm. Like I said, this is what we talk about in the face strike section. You want to focus on attack boost percentage, and crit rate. And then for the main barrel attachment, you can also go for crit damage if you get a god piece. But attack, crit rate, and attack boost percentage, these are the ones you want to kind of focus on for every single character. Once again, prioritize assault rifles over other classes of weapons. Assault rifles, and then maybe a sniper rifle, like I said, if you have like a unit like Macchiato. Submachine guns also are a good one to prioritize if you have a damage dealer like Leva. So for example, if Leva's going to be your main damage dealer, try and get a really good set of phase strike for her, and maybe prioritize using some of the gold chips for that. Otherwise, focus for assault rifles, because at the very least, like I said, Changju and Tolol can utilize them. That's all the different ways that you kind of min-maxed your character. Like I said, as you're leveling your account, you focus on getting the face strike set attachments that are like of the right stats, and maybe calibrate them to like 100% or above. And then finally, let's talk about formations. This is the last piece of this whole puzzle. What formations let you do is it allows you to assign your best gear to the characters that are currently being used for that mission. So for example, let's say that we are going to do a boss and we know that they are very susceptible to fire damage, or the fire-like team playstyle. So let's build a fire team real quick. Let's say we have Changju and Vector. Let's say we picked Vector up. And then we got Sharkery and probably Cheetah, right? This is all very, very easy to get characters. Vector is the only one that's on a limited banner. But the rest of these you can just get through standard banners, etc., and you're building this team out. Now, we know that when we're doing this fight, we're not using Tolol in this team. So instead of going to the refining room and moving all the gear around, we can just do it on the screen here. This allows the characters that you're using for this team to use all your best stuff. And what I mean by that is, for example, Sharkery. Since we know Tolol's not in this team, for example, we can just have her use Tolol's weapon, which also includes all the good attachments I have on it. So these are gold calibrated attachments. This way that Sharkery will be using the best weapon she can with the best attachments she can, and there won't be any overlap. Same thing for Cheetah here. Like normally I wouldn't be equipping Cheetah with a bunch of gear, but since we know we're going to be using her in this fight, I can, for example, have her use the Svarog, and I can have it have all the attachments that's on the Svarog normally. Same thing goes for keys, right? I can have her use all the keys that, like, for example, this key is normally being used by Tolol, but whatever, for reasons, let's say I want to put it on her. This is Ksenia's key. There's a, I can really min-max this team orientation. For example, like I said, instead of just this normal generic key, I can actually borrow one of the keys on my Lind. There we go. So this allows you to make a custom-made team with all the best attachments you can. Same thing for, it even lets you do remolding patterns. We'll just throw some on here. Quick equip, boom, close enough. And boom. Now this team has got all your best attachments. It's got all your best keys. It's got all your best weapons. And this is really going to allow you to min-max like what your account is using. That's why I was saying you should probably get maybe 1 or 2 sets of very good phase strike for assault rifles, because there are a lot of teams that use 1 or 2 assault rifles, but just 1 max quality set for submachine gun is usually pretty good too, although in this team we use 2. But you get the idea. So when you're farming your weapons for phase strike, or your weapon attachments for phase strike, you want to get like you want to get like 1 or 2 solid sets of phase strike. Like, and by solid sets I mean, once again, attack percentage, and crit rate. And then you can just equip them onto whoever's using them at the time. You might have your entire account roster might be 6 different assault rifle units, right? Like you might have a whole ton of assault rifles on your account, but you don't need to have them all totally decked out, right? If you switch over to an electric team later on, you just put all those attachments on Jangyu. You put all the submachine gun attachments on Lena and Leva. You know, it really makes it easy. You don't have to refarm everything, and you'll be good to go. And this works for future characters that are coming out too. Specifically, some of the powerhouse characters that will be showing up, Alva and Voyamistina, or AK-15 and AN-94. Both those units are very strong. They'll be coming in the quote near future. So it allows you to move those weapon attachments over seamlessly, and it doesn't like waste your time farming. I think we've done it. I think we've covered pretty much everything we could possibly want to cover. This guide is probably another 45-50 minute video at the end of the day, but I think we've covered literally everything. You know what you need to farm for endgame. You know what your goals are, how to spend your intel. You're just literally going to be doing the same thing. We're going to be rinsing and repeating the same. Log in, do your dailies, you know, do your platoon stuff, do your everything until you hit max level on your account. And then you can finally start transitioning into whatever you want to do from there. The world is your oyster. If you want to start prepping for, you know, high-end Gunsmoke, you can do that. If you just want to collect characters and kind of like level them up and gear them out, you can use them in Face Clash. Face Clash mode, like I said, rewards you for having mono element teams, so you can slowly collect all the units in a particular element and then kind of build that team. So, but we've gone way longer than I wanted to on this, so we're gonna wrap it up here. I hope I did a very good job of explaining everything you need to know from a beginner to all the way to a veteran player. If you have questions and stuff, I do streams all the time, so you can just hop in my stream, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that I didn't cover in these guides. I don't know what I could have possibly missed, to be honest. But I'm sure there's something I didn't think about. And you can send comments in the videos. I do read them. I'll respond to them if I can. And with that, I hope you guys, you know, have a good time with the game. I hope you guys have lots of fun. And we'll see you in the next guide. And you know, I'll be doing lots of character guides in the future, so if you have any particular questions on characters, just refer to those. And, you know, you guys have a great one, and I hope your 2026 is off to a good start. See you guys later.